Be ready for the next talk. So I want to introduce Jonas as our next speaker. His topic is matestack UI, and I wanted to give him a huge shout out to start this talk.
Thank you. Okay, hi guys. I want to introduce to you matestack UI. You don't know what matestack is, but I'm going to change that during this talk. So the goal is to rapidly create the dynamic web UIs in pure Ruby. I pitched it this morning. I'm going to do a longer version of the pitch right now. First of all, I'm Jonas. Actually, I studied mechanical engineering. I taught myself software engineering during my studies, and I fell in love with software engineering. But if I take any bullshit, you know why, because I didn't study computer science. So I have a very high-level view on software engineering. You probably might notice that. I'm a co-founder of Basemate. It's a software service agency. And I'm the creator of matestack. That's why I wanted to introduce to you matestack today. So my questions, and I want to see raised hands. Who of you loves to write HTML? Okay. Who of you loves to write CSS? Okay. And who of you loves to create a JavaScript mess for some dynamic behavior? Oh yeah, oh yeah. And who loves to implement Ruby business logic? Exactly. So it worked. Kind of. I didn't expect so many hands of HTML and CSS, but so why this talk? I should have looked there. By the way, that's my first talk in front of an audience with this kind of microphone, so I get to use it. Let's have a look how a Rails developer faced the challenge to create a dynamic user interface, and how much of Ruby he can use while facing this challenge. So we model a database. We use Active Record, and it's very beautiful. We love it. So the definition and the API is. I love it. I know a lot of people who love it. We use controllers, application controller, and it's just working, and it's very nice looking code. It's very maintainable. So in my opinion, it's also very beautiful. We use gems like device to set up authentication. We all know that. I'm just gonna go through that very quickly. You can connect it to your controller, and it's a very nice architecture. It's also maintainable. It is so beautiful. Then, me personally, I'll use Pundit for authorization. There are multiple gems for that. So we can do more than authentication. We can do authorization in a very beautiful way. It is so beautiful. And we define routes, like Rails, what Rails has to offer here. And this is also very beautiful. You can do a lot of things and do a lot of magic, and you can save a lot of time and get applications delivered very fast. So everything looked pretty good until here, but then the view layer is kicking in. Yeah, that's at least is my reaction when I start to have to implement the view layer. So you have basically two options. You can write ERB or Haml Views, and enjoy not to write proper Ruby, and add some JS here and there to enable some dynamics, because ERB is just a static view layer. And then you end up having a badly structured view layer, but at least it sits in your Rails application, so it's part of your Rails application. Or you use the modern approach and create a JavaScript standalone application using one of the major JavaScript frameworks. And then you use Rails often just as a JSON API and do every rendering stuff on your JavaScript standalone application. You end up have often well-structured view layer, because it's a good software engineering what's happened in Vue.js and React and Angular. It's good software engineering. I don't want to say anything about it. So this is well-structured. And you have to enjoy writing a lot of JavaScript. That's where the problem begins, because I don't enjoy that. And the most important thing is you have to maintain two different applications. So you have your Rails backend and your JavaScript frontend, and you have to align these systems, and you have to create APIs, and you lose a lot of functionality. You have to kind of manage authentication, authorization on two systems, kind of. You have to, for example, translations, they live in the back end, but you have to duplicate them somehow on the front end. And so there are a lot of things, in my opinion, which are disadvantages of having two different applications, two repositories, two test suites. So we don't like both approaches, obviously. If I say we, I mean me and my colleagues and some people I know. The first one, the Haml ERB or Slim approach, is, in our opinion, too limited. And the second one is too complex. So there's kind of a gap in between. That's why we created matestack. Oops. And I would like to show you real code, real working code, to give you an idea how we want to fill that gap. And that's why I switched now to my editor. I don't know, from now on, I encourage you to just ask questions right away. And if I'm too fast, because I'm the creator of matestack, for me, everything looks perfectly natural to me. So just let me know if something is if you don't understand anything I'm talking about. Okay, nice. So we have a not styled app here. By purpose, I haven't added any styles because we're talking about functionality right now, not about a bootstrap or material design or whatever. So we have an app. Let's have a look how this looks like in matestack. I'm going to switch to the editor. Is that okay for everybody? Bit bigger? Bigger. Better? Still too? Yeah, but the other pages might be a bit bigger. So that's why I think it's fine now, right? Cool. Okay, we see part of the page actually here. Don't care too much about what this on top is. It's as you can see, it's a Ruby class. What we should have a look at the response part. So matestack has the concept of a page, a concept of a component, and a concept of an app. So these are the three major building blocks. We're going to see what that is in a bit. At the moment, we're looking at the page class, and this page class has a response function. In this response function, this page orchestrates components. So in this case, we describe how the user interface should look like. So if we switch back, we see this output here. This is page 1, hello from page 1. This is like, here we start to orchestrate components. This is a heading component. It's like an H2 HTML tag. But like this is our component call. And we have a div. I think we know what that is. And in this div, we wrap a plain text output hello from page 1. Okay. The first thing what we see here is that we don't write HTML. We write Ruby in a Ruby class. And you can imagine we couldn't put a lot of Ruby on top of it now. We're going to do that, but that's for the first major thing. We describe the user interface using Ruby. The next thing we're going to see is that there's more on this page. There's obviously kind of a layout, so a title and a navigation bar. Where does this live? So a page may have a layout, and we called it like the matestack app has a layout, and a matestack app may manage multiple pages. So, but at the end, an app is just a layout for a page. App just sounds fancier. So we have here again, we have a different class that's now the app class, and we are having here the same kind of principle. We have a response function which orchestrates components. And now we see like a header tag with a heading of size 1 with the text my app. And then we have a navigation part with transition components. These are now special matestack components. You're going to see what they do. You might expect already what they're going to do. But again, we declare our user interface with some buttons here. We have 6 buttons with different routes they should transition to. And we have a main part, and here we have page content. That's a yield. That's a Rails layout. A Rails layout has a yield, and that's exactly the same. We have a layout from our app called My App in this case. It provides the navigation and the rough layout, and then has a yield here. So what you just saw is the first page with this content yielded into the layout the app has provided. So again, that's just the basics of matestack, because it was just static. So if I rerun that, it's just a static output. But magic happens now if I click this button. Maybe it's not that easy to see, but there was no page reload. It was like asynchronously switched out these 2 pages. We're gonna quickly have a look at page 2. Page 2, like we introduce here, like a prepare statement. It's just this should be done before rendering. So we initialize an array of strings. Again, we orchestrate some components, and you might see we are like these. This is just HTML tags you're already familiar with, but implemented in Ruby. So we have a list, and we iterate through this array, showing, just displaying the content of the array in a list. But the main thing is that the transition here between those 2 pages was done through matestack magic without any JavaScript involved from us. This is really big for us because this is a classic requirement of a dynamic user interface. You want to have page transitions with animations and loading bars and stuff, and normally you would have to write some JavaScript for that. But because it's a classic requirement of a dynamic user interface, we don't want to write JavaScript. We just wanted to declare or define the behavior in a Ruby class, and it should just happen magically, because we don't want to do that every time, and it's error prone if we do implemented that by ourselves in every application again. So this is one main concept of matestack, dynamic page transitions. I can show you just how that looks like if you have a look at the network. Just wait, how I do I fix it? Yeah. So I switch to page 1. I have a call, so I just get this content back from the server from page 1, and matestack's JavaScript, which is based on Vue.js, just takes this content and displays it in this area. So you can imagine that's just the same again. Okay, questions until here. So we have seen 2 major things, HTML written in a Ruby class, and dynamic page transitions based on some magic JavaScript matestack just ships automatically. Any questions until here? Okay, cool.
Oh, here was a question, right?
Oh, sorry.
Just a quick question. Is this also compatible with other Ruby-based frameworks like Sinatra, for instance, or is it mostly a Rails kind of gem?
At the moment, it's built for Rails, but I know that this can be a requirement that we're going to port that to other frameworks, Ruby-based frameworks. At the moment, that was just, I wanted to try out if the concept is working, and so I did that for Rails because we do client projects in Rails, and we validate our ideas in our daily business. So because we don't want to build something what is not working in reality, so that's why we built a Rails engine. I didn't say that, right? It's in Rails engine. But you just plug it into your Rails application, and you get these functionalities out of the box. And we use that in our on our production client systems. Okay, so matestack had a lot more to offer. We're going to see a bit of that right now. Okay, we're going to dynamically transition to page 3 without on page reload. Wow. This is page 3. Okay, let's see what happens here. There's a button and there's a date string, kind of. And if I click it, you see that like there's a new string and some kind of notification appears. So let's see how this is implemented on my third page. Okay, again, component orchestration. We have here our action component. This is a matestack core component. This gets a configuration, and this configuration, sorry for that, it's defined in a Ruby function. This Ruby function here just returns a hash, which tells the action component what to do. So we want to perform a post request to this path. This is just a Rails route. And if succeeded, we want to emit this event, and if failed, we want to emit this event. This is the configuration an action expects. To visualize the action, we could actually put any component here, but we decided to put a button with a text "click me." This is why you saw "click me." And it performed, obviously, post requests. And yeah, you get it, I think. Then what happened, the part of the UI re-rendered after I clicked it, this part here. And that's because I told this part of the UI with our async component that it should re-render this part if this event is received. And we saw this event is emitted if the action succeeded. So obviously the controller behind it just succeeded, the action succeeded, and the event was emitted, and then this component here, which visualizes or displays the state string, re-rendered. We do kind of the same, but different, on this part of the UI. It's also the async component, but now we say show on this event and hide after 2000 milliseconds. So this is why we saw action succeeded for 2 seconds. This is kind of the notification. So it's a dynamic feedback, which we just described with a few lines of Ruby without any JavaScript involved. This is also a classic requirement of a dynamic user interface, that we want to respond dynamically to kind of back-end reaction. And if the action would have failed, we would have seen this appearing for 2 seconds. So this is like a new concept I just introduced. Questions until here? Yes, please. I think we need a microphone.
I have a microphone.
I'm just wondering, what is PG?
Yeah, sorry, that's a paragraph tag, because normally in HTML it's just a P, but P is puts in Ruby, so we couldn't use that, so we used PG. Sorry for that, but it's just like to have some spaces between these parts. By the way, we implemented, I think, 20 of the classic HTML tags with div, UL, li, table, span, whatever, and PG is a P tag.
Does your event system support more data payload in the event, or is it just?
Yes, it does, but it's I think I can't cover it in that time, but it does. Okay, I think I have to hurry up. I have 10 minutes left, and I want to show you much more. Okay, now it's going to be a bit more interesting. We have a classic requirement. We have user input. Let's see what happens here. Okay, hello. Okay, so this was also without a page reload. We part of the UI re-rendered because I submitted this form using my return key. I'm gonna try to put that into that again. It's not working. I see notification, and it's disappeared again. You could imagine what that was. But the reason is I have a model, and it validates title, presence, and it validates the presence and uniqueness of a title. And obviously, I try to create the same instance of dummy model with the same title, and so active record was not happy with that. And the active record validation error messages was dynamically included in the UI. And we should have a look how this is implemented, because that's a classic requirement again. So we have again our page we prepared. We have a new instance of dummy model which we're going to use in our form. So we have some headings here, and now we're going to focus on that part. That's a form component. It's a matestack component. And it's going to get a configuration again. This configuration again is stored here in this method. So form for dummy model for this instance, for this new instance. It's a classic approach to like simple form, and classic rates form does the same. We tell this form pretty specific what to do. It should perform a post against this path, obviously with the input, and same as action component, success and failure emit events. So we tell the form now in a block that it should ask for the title. It should be a text, and the placeholder should be title and paragraph. Just to have a space, I don't want it to style anything. And then the form submit, which then triggers this form and should be visualized as a button. This is what we see here. So input, button, and then this is the matestack form magic, the validations from the active record model, because it was not unique. Of course, we can do that sometime. This is just a form input, and then here we have this list, dummy model all each. Just display the plain dummy model title of this iteration. And this is wrapped in an async, which reacts on this form succeeded event. So this is why this part re-rendered after successful form submission with the new dummy model included, obviously. Okay, just one more thing here, and then some questions. And oops, that was not the right thing to do. Okay. So we have, on the right side we see page 5, on the left side we see still page 4 with the input. And just have a look at this part here now while I'm, hello, Unconf. Okay, so there was 2 different browser sessions, and obviously there are some broadcasters there, so there's action cable involved somehow. But the good thing is it's very easy to implement this reactive user interface. Let's have a look at page 5. So we see again just some headings, and then we see again this async component, which then renders just a list of dummy models, and we just tell the async component again to re-render on an event. It's nothing different for us in our head. It's just like async re-render on an event. no JavaScript involved. The only thing we have to take care of is, so this is, I'm going to cover that later or never, that form action. I create a form action with the params, so everything is classic Rails, what we, on the controller side, what we just used on the back end. And if any errors, just respond with an error code. And if not, broadcast test model created. This is the event this async was waiting for to re-render. And this is at the moment just we're using just action cable to broadcast this to a specific channel, and that's it. No JavaScript involved, and you get a WebSocket-based user interface. Yeah, so this is hopefully nice. Wait a second, I'm gonna create this. Last step we just saw. I have 4 minutes to go. We just saw matestack core components in action. So this is our library that's well documented and tested. How you can configure them and how you can orchestrate them in your page class. But if this is not enough, you might want to create your own components. And I'm not going to cover it into detail now, but you can create your own custom components using classic Vue.js, because matestack is Vue.js based. So pretty much matestack abstracts Vue.js and Rails communication, but so matestack comes with a lot of Vue.js under the hood. And if you want to extend matestack, you should write a Vue.js component and just place it right next to the core components. I'm just going to show you real quick the 6th page now. Again, core component heading, core component async, and then custom demo component. Custom is the namespace you have to use if you want to create your own components. And this custom demo component, I'm going to hurry now, is just, again, using the matestack templating, Ruby templating in this case then, and just adds Vue.js directives, and this is like how your custom component looks like. It's some matestack namespacing, whatever included, but at the end it's just a classic Vue.js component, and this Vue.js component triggers if you click this button, it triggers an API call. And then, yeah, it's just classic Vue.js. It's nothing too fancy here, and just iterates through the freshly received data. And this is how you're gonna extend matestack. So there are actually no limits, but the intention was that probably 80 to 90% of classic web data-driven web UI can be orchestrated using these core components. And if there are some parts where you need very, very specific behavior, you just create your own components and just put it right next to all the core components without creating a mess or whatever. It's just like, in our opinion, it's very well architectured there. Last point, maybe you might ask how this is connected through routes, through controllers. You just have classic routes. There's nothing different here. First page, second page, whatever. You have then, your controllers, you constructed them how you want to, these actions, and you have this helper ships this special function, and you just put your class here. So at that point, you're telling the Rails action, use the matestack class to render the result of this action. And that's how everything is put together. We don't touch anything else from Rails. Because we love Rails. So we just wanted to have the option to put a new view layer on everything else Rails has to offer. And of course, you can do it progressively. You can just action by action decide where you want to respond with a matestack page. Well, that's it for now. And No questions are welcome. Okay.
Actually, because it's 3, maybe we can do it one question or two, and then I think we should just wrap it up. So, I see. No.
Do you have any benchmark how fast it render pages in comparison with ERB or Slim? And
Slower.
What?
It's slower. Right now it's slower. We don't have benchmark. It is slower. We should perform benchmarks, but at the moment we wanted just to have a working concept which we will optimize in future with server-side caching and stuff. But we have to optimize performance. That's true. But in a lot of applications we are shipping to the client, it's actually not a matter of performance. It's just a matter of how much budget the client has to get something he can work with. So often performance is not the most important thing, but we want to optimize that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
One more question over there. Yeah.
Which parts of Trailblazer are you using? Like, are these pages operations from Trailblazer? Or
No, it's the Trailblazer cells, which
and
we
only
use.
the cells? Or
Yeah,
something else?
but you don't never touch that actually. So this is the nice part, because Trailblazer cells are very good, but sometimes too complicated. We want to offer easier approach. May I just 30 seconds? I just want the feedback. So who of you are interested in using such approach? Just like quick, wow, thank you very much. This is nice. If you like what you just saw, go to GitHub. Please give us a star. That would be really nice. Just looking for basemate or matestack, you should find it on GitHub. It's open source, of course. Try it out, create issues. It's not perfect yet, it's version 0.6. And contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jonas.
Thank you.